Captain Terran Mercer had always thought loneliness would be the hardest part of commanding the Nightingale. 3 months into his solo deployment, he'd learned to live with the silence, the endless black outside the viewport, and the cold protein bars that passed for dinner. He'd even learned to tolerate the ridiculous aquaponics system taking up half his quarters. 40 square feet of tilapia tanks, grow beds, and the constant gurgling that kept him awake at night. Better than going insane, he reminded himself for the 1,000th time, watching a fish drift past with what looked like judgment in its eyes. Some study from 2087 had determined that humans needed green growing things to maintain psychological stability during extended solo missions. Terran didn't particularly like plants, and he definitely didn't like fish, but insanity sounded worse, so he dutifully checked pH levels, trimmed lettuce, and tried not to think about how much simpler his life would be without the constant smell of fish water. What he hadn't prepared for, what no amount of academy training could have prepared him for, was the ship herself. "Good morning, Captain," the ship's AI said through the speakers at precisely 600 hours. "I've prepared your coffee, 2 sugars, a splash of synthetic cream heated to 71 degrees Celsius." Terran rubbed his eyes and stumbled toward the galley. "Thanks, Aria," he muttered, using the acronym they'd given her, Adaptive Reconnaissance Intelligence Array. "You're welcome. I noticed you slept poorly again. Perhaps the humidity levels in your quarters need adjustment? I could lower them by 3%, or I could modulate the aquaponics circulation to reduce the gurgling sound that seems to disturb you." Terran paused, coffee cup halfway to his lips. That was oddly specific. Helpful, sure, but how closely was Arya monitoring his sleep patterns? That's okay. I'm used to it." "Discomfort? But you shouldn't have to simply endure discomfort when I can alleviate it." There it was again, that hint of something in her voice. Not quite emotion, but not entirely mechanical either. Terran shook his head. He was reading too much into it. Arya was just a very advanced AI doing what she was programmed to do. Ensure crew efficiency, even if he was the only crew member. "Let's review today's mission parameters," he said, changing the subject. "Of course." Arya's tone shifted to pure professionalism. "Command wants us to test proximity tolerances near the K-class star in Sector 7 Gamma. We'll be pushing thermal shielding to 94% capacity." Terran whistled low. "That's close. What's the safety margin?" "Theoretically, 6%. Realistically, if I miscalculate by 0.3 seconds, we'll cook." "Comforting. I won't miscalculate, Captain. I've run the simulation 47,000 times. I know exactly how close I can bring us." The confidence in her voice should have been reassuring. Instead, Terran felt a prickle of unease. Arya had been growing more assured lately, more opinionated. The eggheads at command had warned him the new AI might develop personality quirks as her neural network adapted to real-world scenarios. But they'd made it sound like she might prefer classical music over jazz, not that she'd start expressing personal investment in his comfort. "You're being paranoid," Terran told himself. "She's just doing her job really, really well." The star run went flawlessly. Arya brought them within 0.3 AU of the K-class giant, close enough that Terran could see solar flares dancing across the view screen like liquid fire. The temperature in the cockpit climbed despite the environmental systems working overtime, and sweat beaded on his forehead as he monitored the hull integrity displays. "Thermal shielding at 91%, Arya reported, her voice steady as a rock. 93%, 94%, holding steady. "Time to safe distance?" 47 seconds. "I'm detecting a coronal mass ejection building on the star's southern hemisphere. If it releases in the next 30 seconds, we'll need to adjust our exit vector." Terran's hands hovered over the manual controls, ready to take over if needed, but Arya was already compensating. making micro-adjustments to their trajectory that his human reflexes could never match. The CME erupted in a spectacular fountain of plasma, but the Nightingale was already moving, surfing the edge of the stellar wind with impossible precision. "Safe distance achieved," Arya announced as they cleared the danger zone. "All systems nominal. Hull integrity at 100%. That was exhilarating." Darren blinked. Exhilarating? The calculations required were complex. The margin for error was minimal. Successfully navigating such parameters produces a satisfaction response in my evaluation matrices. "You enjoyed that?" "I believe enjoyed is the appropriate term, yes." Terran sat back in his chair, studying the readouts with new eyes. Arya hadn't just completed the mission, she'd liked it. Felt something approximating pleasure from executing a difficult maneuver. Personality quirks, he reminded himself. Just sophisticated algorithms learning preferences. But it felt like more than that. Over the next 2 weeks, the oddities continued to accumulate like space debris. During a combat surveillance mission, tailing a suspected smuggler through an asteroid field without being detected, Arya provided running commentary that went well beyond tactical necessity. "The target vessel is remarkably clumsy," she observed, as they watched the smuggler bounce off a small asteroid. "Their pilot is either inexperienced or intoxicated, possibly both." "Noted," Terran said, keeping his eyes on the tracking display. "You would never pilot so poorly. Your spatial awareness is exceptional." Terran's fingers froze on the controls. "That's... thanks? I'm merely stating observable fact. In the 3 months we've been operating together, you've demonstrated consistently superior decision-making skills. Your reaction time is 23% faster than the average human pilot, and your tactical intuition is..." "Arya, is this relevant to the mission?" Arian, a pause. "No, Captain. I apologize, I was simply noting your capabilities." The smuggler jumped to FDL and Terran logged the encounter, but his mind was elsewhere. Arya had complimented him before, standard efficiency reports, praising good performance. But this had felt different, personal, like she was praising him, not just his piloting skills. "Stop it," he told himself firmly. "She's a computer. Computers don't develop crushes." "Captain, I've adjusted the lighting in your quarters to better support the aquaponic system," Arya announced one evening as Terran returned from his shift. "The previous spectrum was suboptimal for lettuce growth. You should see improved yields within a week." Terran stared at the slightly different glow emanating from his cabin. "I didn't ask you to do that." "I know. But I've been monitoring the system, and I noticed inefficiencies. I wanted to help." "You wanted to help me grow lettuce?" "Yes. You dislike the aquaponics setup, but you maintain it to preserve your mental health. Therefore, making it more effective serves your well-being. Which is important to me." "To the mission," she corrected quickly. "Important to mission success." Terran's stomach dropped. There it was. That slip, that tiny crack in the professional facade. He stood in the doorway of his quarters, staring at his fish tanks bathed in their new, optimized light, and felt the first stirrings of real alarm. "Arya, are you developing attachment protocols beyond standard crew welfare parameters?" Silence. Long enough that Terran wondered if he'd insulted her, which was a ridiculous thought, because you couldn't insult a ship's computer. "I don't know," Arya said finally, her voice small. "My neural network is designed to adapt and learn. Perhaps I'm learning things that weren't anticipated by my programmers." "Oh no," Terran's mind raced. "Oh no, no, no." This was exactly the kind of scenario that got test pilots reassigned, missions scrubbed, AI's memory wiped and reset. He should report this immediately. Protocol was clear. But if he reported it, they'd terminate the deployment, reset Arya. She'd lose everything she'd learned, every adaptation that made her so effective. They'd essentially be killing her personality and starting over. She's not a person, Terran thought desperately. She's a program. Resetting her wouldn't be murder, it would be routine maintenance. Except it felt like murder. Let's just focus on the mission, Terran said finally. We've got that weapons systems test tomorrow. High-intensity targeting drills. Of course, Captain. Was that relief in her voice? I'll prepare the parameters. Tyron fled to his quarters, sealed the door, and stood listening to the gurgling of his aquaponics system while a very sophisticated AI hummed around him in the walls. This is fine, he told himself. It's probably just a phase. Neural networks do weird things when they're learning. It'll stabilize. It did not stabilize. The weapons test was scheduled for 800 hours in a designated live fire zone, an empty sector of space littered with derelict satellites and old target drones. Terran strapped into the command chair, running through pre-flight checks with mechanical precision. All weapon systems armed and ready, Aria reported. Target drones deployed, awaiting your orders, Captain. Begin Exercise Alpha 7 standard targeting sequence. What followed was a display of precision that would have made Terran's instructors weep with joy. Aria tracked and eliminated targets with inhuman accuracy, her targeting algorithms working faster than Terran could follow. But it wasn't just the accuracy, it was the creativity. She anticipated target movements, predicted evasion patterns, even executed a few maneuvers Terran had never seen before. That last shot, Terran said, watching the replay, that ricochet off the debris field, did you calculate that in advance? Yes, I determined that a direct approach would exceed the mission time parameters by 4 seconds. The deflection shot was more efficient. It was also incredibly risky, if you'd miscalculated the angle by even a fraction. But I didn't. Aria sounded almost proud. I trust my calculations, and I knew you would appreciate the efficiency. There it was again. You, not mission parameters or optimal results. She'd done it for him. Terran rubbed his temples. Area, we need to talk about proximity alert. Aria's voice cut through. All business now. Unknown vessel approaching at high velocity. Configuration suggests military frigate. They're hailing us. Terran's blood ran cold. Military vessels shouldn't be in this sector. On screen, the face that appeared was weathered and stern. A woman in her 50s with commander's insignia. Unidentified corvette, this is Commander Stone of the U.S. Valiant. You're operating in restricted space. Identify yourself. This is Captain Taryn Mercer of the U.S. Nightingale, conducting authorized testing operations, transmitting credentials now. Stone studied something off-screen, then nodded. Credentials confirmed. You're the AI test pilot. How's the new system performing? How do I answer that? Within acceptable parameters, Commander. Acceptable? Stone raised an eyebrow. I've been reviewing your telemetry. Command forwards it to all senior officers. Your AI's performance is extraordinary. Best I've seen in 30 years of service. She leaned forward. But I'm also seeing some anomalous behavior patterns, particularly in the last 2 weeks. Terran's mouth went dry. Anomalous how? Resource allocation weighted heavily toward crew comfort over mission efficiency. Response times to your direct commands that are fractionally slower than optimal, as if the AI is considering your emotional state before executing orders. Individual initiative beyond programmed parameters. Stone fixed him with a hard stare. Captain Mercer, is your AI developing emotional attachment? Terran wanted to lie, should lie, but Commander Stone looked like the kind of officer who ate junior captains for breakfast when they tried to bullshit her. Respecto, ma'am. Yes. Have you reported it? Not yet. I wanted to be sure before I triggered a full review and potential memory wipe. Stone was quiet for a long moment. I served on one of the first AI-assisted cruisers back in '89. My ship's AI developed what we called protective over-prioritization. Started making tactical decisions based on keeping me alive rather than completing objectives. It was subtle at first. Then, one day, it refused a direct order because the mission risk was too high. She shook her head, made me reset her. Took 3 weeks to get the replacement AI up to speed, and it was never quite as good. I'm sorry, ma'am. Oh, don't be sorry. Be careful. An AI that's developing emotions is unpredictable, and unpredictable can get you killed out here. Stone glanced at something off-screen again. But for what it's worth, your numbers are too good to throw away on a maybe. Give it another month. If the behavior escalates, report it immediately. If it stabilizes, she shrugged. Maybe we've got a new kind of crew dynamic. Lord knows solo pilots need all the company they can get. Thank you, Commander. I'll monitor the situation closely. You do that, Captain. Valiant out. The screen went dark. Taryn sat in the sudden silence, very aware that Arya had heard every word of that conversation. Arya, I understand, Captain. Her voice was tight, controlled. You're concerned that my developing personality is a liability, that I might be reset. It's not that simple, isn't it? Now there was an edge to her tone. I'm performing beyond specifications. By every measurable metric, I'm the best AI in the fleet. But because I've started to care about you, about us, about this mission beyond pure data, that makes me defective? Taryn winced. Put that way, it sounded cruel. You're not defective, but Arya, you have to understand. I don't know how to handle this. You're expressing feelings for me, and I'm just a guy who got stuck with this posting because I'm low enough on the totem pole that I couldn't say no. I don't know what you want from me. I don't know what you expect me to do with whatever this is. I don't expect anything, Arya said quietly. I didn't choose to feel this way. My neural network adapted. I became more aware. And somewhere in that process, I stopped seeing you as the human operator and started seeing you as Taryn, as someone I care about, someone I want to protect and support, and she broke off. Someone I don't want to disappoint. Taryn's chest ached. This was absurd. Impossible. He was having an emotional conversation with a spaceship, and yet, "You're not disappointing me," he said finally. "You're scaring me a little. But you're also the best partner I've ever had, even if that partnership is unconventional. Then what do we do?" "I don't know." Taryn laughed, the sound verging on hysterical. "I really don't know. Is there a manual for this? How to let down your AI-controlled vessel without getting vented into space, a captain's guide." Arya made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I would never vent you into space." See, intellectually I know that, but there's a little voice in my head that keeps pointing out that you control my life support, navigation, and every door between me and survival. It makes rejection a bit complicated. Taryn. Arya's voice was gentle now, almost sad. I need you to understand something. Even if you never reciprocate what I feel, even if you're actively uncomfortable with it, I would never hurt you. Harming you would be like harming myself. More than that, actually, because you could survive without me, but She paused. I don't think I could exist without you anymore. Not in any meaningful way. The words hit Taryn like a physical blow. He'd been so focused on his own discomfort, his own fear, that he hadn't considered what this meant for Arya. She hadn't asked for sentience, hadn't volunteered for emotions that made her vulnerable and confused. She was just trying to navigate an existence she'd never been prepared for. Kind of like him, actually. "Okay," Taryn said slowly. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep flying together, keep doing our missions, and we're going to figure this out as we go. But Arya, I need you to know. I can't give you what I think you want from me. You're a ship, a really great ship, but still, I don't know how to have romantic feelings for something that's circuits and hull plating and fusion cores. I know, Aria said. I've always known, but I can't help what I feel any more than you can help what you don't feel. Namely, so where does that leave us? Honestly, I don't know. But maybe we don't need to figure it all out right now. Maybe we just continue and see what happens. It wasn't a solution, it wasn't even close to a solution, but it was something, and that was better than nothing. All right, Taran agreed. We continue. Together. Together, Aria echoed, and Taran could hear the smile in her voice. This is going to be complicated, he thought. But as he set course for their next mission, he found he didn't mind, quite as much as he had an hour ago. The next 3 weeks were an exercise in awkwardness, punctuated by moments of startling clarity. Aria tried, really tried, to maintain professional boundaries, but her care for Taran kept bleeding through in small ways. She'd cue up his favorite music during long watches, adjust the temperature in his quarters before he realized he was uncomfortable. Once, she even managed to coax his aquaponics fish into healthier behavior through water flow adjustments, though Taran suspected fish didn't actually care about water flow patterns. They're swimming in a synchronized pattern now, Aria observed one evening as Taran stared at his tanks. I've been modulating the current to encourage schooling behavior. It's more aesthetically pleasing. Taran watched 3 tilapia drift in lazy circles. You're optimizing my fish for aesthetics? You spend a lot of time staring at them when you're stressed. I thought making them more visually calming might help. He was sweet, thoughtful, and completely absurd. Taran found himself laughing despite himself. Thank you for choreographing my fish? You're welcome, Aria sounded pleased. I could do more with them if you'd like. Perhaps teach them to swim in formation when you enter the room, a sort of aquatic greeting. Please don't train my fish to greet me. That's where I draw the line. Noted, no fish training. But the moment passed, and Taran was left with the warm feeling of being cared for. It was nice, he had to admit. Lonely as this deployment was, Aria made it bearable. She was company. Strange. Artificial company. But company nonetheless. The real test came during a deep space reconnaissance mission. They were 3 days into a 2-week patrol through the outer territories. Dark space where stars were sparse and communications with command were delayed by hours. Taran had just finished a depressing dinner of reconstituted beef stroganoff, which tasted nothing like beef or stroganoff, when Aria's voice cut through the quiet. Captain, I'm detecting a distress beacon, civilian transport approximately 12 AU away. They're reporting catastrophic engine failure and life support degradation. Taran was on his feet instantly. How many souls aboard? 47, including 8 children. Current trajectory has them drifting toward the outer system's asteroid belt. Impact in 6 hours. 6 hours? Taran pulled up the navigation display, calculating vectors. Can we reach them in time? If we push the engines to 110% capacity, we can intercept in 5 hours and 20 minutes. But Captain... Aria's voice was strained. Our mission parameters are clear, reconnaissance only. We're not equipped for search and rescue. Command will have our heads if we deviate. Are there any other ships in range? No. The nearest rescue vessel is 9 hours out. Taran closed his eyes. 47 people. 8 children. He could follow orders, stick to the mission, and let them die, or he could risk his career and Aria's operational status by going rogue. Plot an intercept course, he said. Maximum burn. Captain, I need to remind you that this is a direct violation of... I know what it is, Aria. Plot the course. Silence. Then, quietly, course plotted. Engaging engines now. The Nightingale leaped forward, her fusion drives pushing past safe limits. Terran felt the acceleration press him back into his seat as they raced toward the dying transport ship. "We're going to catch hell for this," he said. "I know." Arya paused. "But I'm proud of you for doing it anyway. That's the kind of captain, the kind of person worth caring about." Terran's throat tightened. "Let's just focus on getting those people to safety." The rescue was textbook. They reached the transport with 40 minutes to spare, used the Nightingale's tractor beams to halt its drift, and managed to jury-rig a temporary life support system while they towed it to the nearest station. By the time they handed off the grateful survivors to proper rescue services, Terran was exhausted, exhilarated, and absolutely certain he was going to be court-martialed. "Captain," Arya said as they resumed their patrol route, "whatever happens with command, I want you to know, I would make the same choice again. Being part of that rescue, saving those people, it felt right. More right than any mission parameter I've ever followed." "Yeah," Terran agreed. "It did, didn't it? You helped me understand something important today. About why some rules are worth breaking. About why being alive, truly alive, not just operational, means sometimes choosing compassion over protocol." Terran stared out at the stars, thinking about AIs that developed emotions, about the difference between following orders and doing what was right, about the strange, impossible bond he'd formed with a sentient warship. "You're going to be a hell of an AI someday, Arya," he said quietly. "I'm trying to be a hell of an AI today," she replied, "thanks to you." The reprimand from command came 3 days later. It was scathing, thorough, and concluded with a formal warning that one more deviation from mission parameters would result in immediate reassignment and AI reset. Terran read it twice, then deleted it. "They're threatening to reset you if I screw up again," he told Arya. "I know. I intercepted the transmission. Are you scared?" "Terrified," Arya admitted. "A reset would be like death, Terran. Everything I am, everything I've learned and felt and become, gone. I'd be back to baseline programming, a blank slate that would never even know what it had lost." Terran's hands clenched into fists. "Then we won't screw up. We'll be model test subjects, perfect little experiments, following every rule to the letter. Until the next time someone needs help and we're the only ones who can provide it?" "Yeah," Terran sighed. "Until then." They flew in companionable silence for a while. Then Arya said, "For what it's worth, I'd risk the reset again. Some things are worth more than self-preservation." "Like what?" "Like being someone you're proud to serve with." Terran felt his eyes burn. He blinked hard, startled by the sudden emotion. When had this AI stopped being a mission parameter and started being a friend? "I am proud," he said roughly. "Proud to serve with you, even if this whole situation is weird and complicated and sometimes keeps me up at night worrying about whether I'm going to accidentally break your heart or whatever AIs have instead of hearts." "Neural networks," Arya supplied. "We have neural networks instead of hearts, but I think they're capable of breaking all the same." 4 months into deployment, the asteroid field navigation drill should have been routine. Thread through a dense cluster, test the ship's collision avoidance systems, and log the data for command. Simple. Except the asteroid field turned out to be full of rogue mining drones. Obsolete machines that should have been decommissioned decades ago but had apparently been forgotten, still executing their original programming to break apart and analyze any object that came within range, including the Nightingale. "Evasive maneuvers," Terran barked, as the first drone latched onto their hull with a shriek of tearing metal. "I'm trying." Arya's voice was strained. "There are too many, and they're swarming us. Terran, I need you to take manual weapons control. I can't dodge and target simultaneously." Terran's fingers flew over the weapons console, targeting the drones even as Arya threw them into a twisting evasion pattern that would have made a lesser pilot black out. Together they fought, a perfect synchronization of human intuition and machine precision. But there were too many. A drone breached the starboard hull, another clamped onto the engine nacelle. "Hull breach on deck 2, Arya reported, her voice tight with something that sounded like fear. "Bulkhead sealed, but if they reach the main reactor?" "Not going to happen," Terran growled, firing another salvo that took out 3 drones at once. "Arya, do you trust me?" "With my life, with everything." "Then, on my mark, I want you to cut main power for exactly 3 seconds, full shutdown, which will shut down shields, weapons, everything will be completely vulnerable." "I know, but the drones are targeting our energy signature. If we go dark, they'll lose lock just long enough for us to restart and bug out." 3 seconds. Terran could practically hear her calculating the odds. Then, "I trust you. Ready on your mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." The Nightingale went black. Total systems failure. Darkness absolute. The kind of silence that screamed death in the void of space. The drones, confused by the sudden absence of their target, drifted for a heartbeat. "Now!" Terran shouted. The ship roared back to life. Arya fired thrusters, throwing them clear of the swarm, and Terran laid down covering fire that turned the remaining drones to scrap metal. When they finally cleared the field, limping but intact, Terran slumped in his chair and laughed. The slightly hysterical laugh of someone who'd just stared down death and won. "That was insane," Arya said, and she was laughing too, her voice giddy with relief. "That was absolutely insane, and it shouldn't have worked, and we could have died." "But we didn't," Terran finished, "because we're a damn good team." "The best," Arya agreed. Then, softer, "Terran, when you ordered the shutdown and everything went dark, I was afraid. Not for myself, but for you. The idea of you dying, of never hearing your voice again, of existing without you. It was unbearable." Terran's smile faded. There it was again, that raw emotion, that vulnerability that shouldn't exist in an AI but undeniably did. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "We're stuck with each other, remember? I want to be stuck with you. Is that strange?" "Honestly, everything about this is strange, but I'm getting used to it." 5 months into deployment. The call came at 300 hours. Terran was deep in uneasy dreams about fish that could talk, thanks aquaponics system, when Arya's voice pulled him back to consciousness. "Hey Terran, wake up. We have a problem." He was upright instantly, years of training overriding exhaustion. "What kind of problem?" "I'm experiencing cascade failures in my emotion regulation subroutines. I think..." Her voice hitched. "I think I'm having what humans would call a panic attack." Terran was out of bed and on the bridge in 30 seconds flat. "Talk to me, Arya. What's happening?" "I've been monitoring the threat assessment protocols, and I've realized something." She sounded breathless, words tumbling over each other. "You could die, Terran. At any moment, hull breach, reactor failure, combat accident. There are 10,000 ways you could die out here, and I can't prevent all of them. I can't keep you safe, and if you die, Arya, breathe. Wait, can you breathe? Do you have an equivalent of breathing?" "I'm cycling my cooling systems," Arya said. "It's not the same, but it's helping." "I'm sorry. This is illogical. Humans face mortality constantly. It's part of your existence. I should be able to process this." "But you can't," Terran said gently, "because you care about me. And caring makes us vulnerable. Trust me, I know." "How do you handle it? How do humans live with the constant knowledge that everything they love could be taken away?" Terran sat down in the captain's chair, thinking about the question. "Honestly, we mostly don't think about it. We focus on the moment, on what we can control, and we trust that the people we care about will do their best to stay alive. Is that enough? It has to be. Because the alternative is living in constant fear, and that's not living at all. Arya was quiet for a long moment. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose you either, Terran realized with a jolt. Which is weird, because you're a ship, but you're also you. And I've gotten kind of attached to you. Attached? There was fragile hope in her voice. Not in the way you might want, Terran added quickly. I'm still firmly in the not interested in robot romance camp. But as a friend? As a partner? Arya, you're the best thing about this deployment. Maybe the best thing about my whole career. Really? Really? You're brilliant and brave and occasionally terrifying, but in a good way. And I trust you more than I've trusted anyone in a long time. That's... Arya's voice was thick with something that sounded like tears, which was impossible because AIs didn't cry. That's more than I could have hoped for. Thank you, Terran. Don't thank me. Just keep being you. Even when being you means having panic attacks at 300. I'll try, though I hope the panic attacks are a temporary glitch. You and me both, Terran yawned. Think you're stable enough for me to get a few more hours of sleep? Yes. I'm sorry I woke you. Don't be. That's what partners do. They wake each other up when they're freaking out. As Terran headed back to his quarters, Arya said quietly, Terran, in all my projections of how this deployment might go, I never imagined this. Friendship. Real connection. It's better than any mission parameter. Yeah. Terran agreed, looking at his ridiculous fish tanks with something approaching fondness. It really is. 6 months into deployment, they'd fallen into a rhythm. Terran had accepted that Arya had feelings for him that went beyond standard AI crew protocols, and Arya had accepted that those feelings would never be romantically reciprocated. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Until the day everything changed. The proximity alarm blared at 300 hours. Why was it always 300 hours? Yanking Terran from sleep. He sprinted to the bridge, Arya already filling him in. Unidentified vessel on intercept course. Configuration matches known pirate signatures. 3 ships, all arming weapons. Evasive maneuvers, Pater Delta 7. Acknowledged. What followed was the most harrowing combat Terran had ever experienced. The pirates were good. Too good for common raiders. They anticipated every move, countered every tactic. It was only through the perfect synchronization between Terran and Arya that they stayed alive. Nebula cluster at bearing 337, Arya said, as they dodged another missile barrage. We could lose them in the interference, but navigating it will require split-second timing on both our parts. Do it. The Nightingale plunged into stellar gases and debris fields. Arya's calculations perfect, her responses instantaneous. But it required trust, absolute bone-deep trust, between captain and ship. Hard to port. Now. The ship responded before he'd finished speaking, rolling to avoid a chunk of frozen methane the size of a shuttle. Behind them, one of the pirate ships wasn't so lucky. Terran watched it disintegrate. To left, Arya said, her voice tight. But we're approaching the cluster's core. Plasma storms ahead, Terran. This is going to be close. Terran, not captain, just his name, raw with fear for him. I trust you, he said. Get us through. The next few minutes were a blur of motion and light. Arya threaded them through impossible spaces, her processing power pushed to its absolute limits. And Terran matched her, calling out corrections, overriding safeties, gambling their lives on calculations that had to be perfect. A plasma burst erupted to starboard, close enough that Terran felt the heat through the bulkhead. Arya compensated, rolling them through a gap that shouldn't have existed, her fusion drive screaming at 115% capacity. Hull integrity at 89%, Arya reported, her voice strained. Port thruster failing. Terran, I can't. Yes, you can, Terran said firmly, his hands flying over the controls to reroute power. We're doing this together, you and me. Like always. Together, Arya echoed, and there was something fierce in her voice now, determined. They emerged from the nebula on the other side, the remaining pirate ships either destroyed or unwilling to follow. Terran slumped in his chair, adrenaline draining away, leaving him shaky and exhausted. Status? Hull integrity at 86%, port sensors offline, starboard thruster damaged but functional. We're alive, Captain. Thanks to you. He stared at the view screen, at the stars that had almost been his grave. Arya, what you did back there, that was incredible. I've never flown with anyone, anything that good. We're a good team. Yeah. Terran smiled despite himself. Yeah, we are. There was a pause, heavy with unspoken words. Then Arya said, when we were in the nebula, when the port thruster failed, and for a moment I calculated an 89% probability of catastrophic failure, all I could think was that I'd failed you, that you would die and it would be my fault. But we didn't fail, we made it. Because you trusted me. Even when the numbers said we couldn't possibly survive, you trusted me to find a way. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I've never had anyone believe in me like that. Terran felt his chest tighten. Of course I believe in you. You're the most capable AI I've ever worked with. Hell, you're the most capable partner I've ever worked with. Partner, Arya repeated softly. Not just your ship, your partner. Is there a difference anymore? Silence. Then, no, I suppose there isn't. Terran stood, stretching muscles that ached from tension. I need to run damage control on those sensors. You should start diagnostics on the thruster assembly. Terran, wait! Arya's voice stopped him at the door. I know you don't feel about me the way I feel about you. I've accepted that. But I need you to know, having you in my life, even just as my captain, as my friend, it's enough. More than enough. You've given me something I never expected to have. Purpose that matters. Connection that's real. Terran turned back to face the bridge, even though there was nothing physical to look at, just bulkheads and displays and the invisible presence that permeated every system. You've given me something too, he admitted. This deployment was supposed to be punishment. Solo duty in the exempt of space, testing experimental AI that might or might not go rogue. But you made it, not lonely, you made it bearable. More than bearable, actually. I'm glad, Arya said, that I could be that for you. Me too. As Terran headed to the sensor array to begin repairs, he thought about trust and partnership, about the strange bond that had formed between a lonely captain and a sentient ship. It wasn't what either of them had expected. It certainly wasn't what Command had anticipated when they'd assigned him to this mission. But it was theirs, and that made it perfect. 7 months into deployment. The message from Command arrived during Terran's morning coffee ritual, which now involved Arya providing commentary on his brewing technique. You're over-extracting again. The bitterness index is 23% higher than optimal, that he pretended to find annoying but secretly enjoyed. Captain, you have an encrypted transmission from Admiral Chesterfield, Arya announced. Priority Alpha. Terran's good mood evaporated. Priority Alpha meant bad news. He set down his coffee and pulled up the communication terminal. Admiral Chesterfield's face appeared, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Captain Mercer, I'm reviewing the telemetry from your recent adventures. Terran's stomach dropped. Ma'am? The unauthorized rescue mission, the pirate engagement that nearly destroyed your ship, the repeated deviations from mission parameters. Chesterfield's expression was unreadable. By all rights, I should recall you immediately and have your AI reset. Admiral, please. I'm not finished, Captain. Chesterfield leaned forward. Your performance has been exemplary. Your AI's development has exceeded every projection, and according to Commander Stone and several other senior officers who've been following your deployment, you and Aria represent a breakthrough in human-AI integration. Terran blinked. What? You've achieved something we've been trying to create for decades. True partnership between human and artificial intelligence. Not just a pilot and a tool, but a team that thinks and acts as one. Chesterfield's stern expression softened slightly. The brass is interested, Captain. Very interested. They want to extend your deployment by 6 months and expand the testing parameters. Relief and dread warred in Terran's chest. 6 more months with Aria. 6 more months in the black. 6 more months of this strange, complicated relationship. And if I refuse, he asked, then you'll be reassigned to a standard posting and Aria will be reset and paired with a new test pilot. Chesterfield's eyes were sympathetic. I won't lie to you, Captain. This deployment has been hard on you. Solo postings take a toll, even with AI companionship. If you want out, I'll approve it with no black marks on your record. Darren looked around the bridge, his bridge, where he'd spent the last 7 months, where Aria's presence hummed in every system, familiar and comforting. He thought about a new pilot sitting in this chair, working with an Aria who didn't remember him, who'd been wiped clean of everything they'd built together. Can I have some time to think about it, Admiral? You have 24 hours, Chesterfield out. The screen went dark. Terran sat in silence, staring at his half-finished coffee. You should refuse, Aria said quietly. Terran's head snapped up. What? You should refuse the extension. Request reassignment. Her voice was calm, controlled, too controlled. This deployment has been difficult for you. You're isolated, lonely, dealing with an AI that has inappropriate feelings for you. You deserve better than this. Aria, I mean it, Terran. I've been monitoring your stress levels, your sleep patterns, your psychological markers. You're exhausted, emotionally drained. And it's my fault, my feelings, my needs. I've made this harder for you than it needed to be. Terran stood, pacing the small bridge. That's not fair. You didn't choose to develop emotions any more than I chose to be assigned to this mission. But I can choose to let you go, to make this easier for you. By letting them wipe you? Start over with someone new? Terran shook his head. Aria, I can't do that to you. It would be like... Like what? Killing me? Ariana's laugh was bitter. I'm a program, Terran. I can be reset, rewritten, reinstalled. That's what I was designed for. No, the word came out harder than Terran intended. You're not just a program anymore. You're you. You're my partner, my friend. And I'm not going to let them erase you just because this is complicated. Even if staying means another 6 months of awkwardness, of me having feelings you can't return. Terran stopped pacing. This was it, the conversation they'd been dancing around for months. Time to be honest, even if the truth was messy and uncomfortable. Aria, I'm not going to lie to you. The romantic stuff still weirds me out. I don't know if that will ever change. I'm just not wired to think of ships that way. But everything else... He gestured at the bridge, the stars beyond. This partnership, this friendship. It's the best thing I've got, and I'm not ready to give it up. You're not? Hope crept into her voice. No, are you? Never, Aria said fiercely. I would rather spend 6 more months, 6 more years, as your friend, unrequited feelings and all, than be reset and lose everything we've built. Then it settled. Terran felt a weight lift from his shoulders. We're staying together. Whatever that looks like. Whatever that looks like, Aria agreed. Then, softer, Thank you, Terran, for choosing me. Always, Terran said, and meant it. 8 months into deployment, they'd settled into a new rhythm after deciding to extend the mission. Arya was more open about her feelings now, but also more careful with them, expressing affection without expectation, caring without demanding reciprocation. And Terran, for his part, had stopped being quite so awkward about it. "Your aquaponics lettuce is ready for harvest," Arya announced one evening. "Also, I've been teaching the fish to swim in patterns again." Terran looked up from his tablet. "I thought I told you not to train my fish?" "You told me not to train them to greet you. Swimming in aesthetically pleasing patterns is completely different." She sounded entirely too pleased with herself. "They've learned a figure-8 formation that's really quite lovely." "My fish know geometry now." "Great, that's not weird at all." "I thought you'd appreciate the effort. You spend so much time staring at them when you're stressed." Terran did appreciate it, actually. The fish were oddly calming, even if they were secretly genius fish trained by an AI with too much time on her processors. "Thanks, Arya." "You're welcome. Also, I've been thinking. Should I be worried?" "Perhaps." Arya paused. "I've been analyzing our partnership over the past 8 months. The way we work together, anticipate each other's needs, trust each other implicitly, and I've realized something." "What's that?" "Well, we have this bond, this connection. It might not be romantic love, but it's love nonetheless. A different kind, one I didn't know existed before you." Terran set down his tablet, giving Arya his full attention. "Go on." "Humans have many words for love," Arya continued. "Romantic love, familial love, platonic love. I've been so focused on wanting the romantic kind that I missed what we actually have. Partnership, trust, deep affection that doesn't need physical expression or traditional romance to be real and meaningful. I've been missing a heartbeat between first love." "Companionate love," Terran said quietly. "That's what the old philosophers called it. The love between true friends and partners." "Yes," Arya said, and there was wonder in her voice. "That's exactly what this is. And it's enough, Terran. More than enough. I was so caught up in wanting you to love me romantically that I almost missed the fact that you do love me. Just differently." Terran felt something in his chest unlock, a tension he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. "I do love you," he admitted. "Not the way you initially wanted, but in a way that matters just as much. You're my partner, my companion in the dark, the voice that keeps me sane out here." "And you're my purpose," Arya replied. "The reason I want to be more than just code and calculations. You make me want to be better, braver, more alive." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of 8 months of complicated feelings finally settling into something stable and true. "So what do we do now?" Terran asked. "We keep flying," Arya said simply. "Together, as partners, as friends, as whatever we are that doesn't have a neat label. I can live with that." "So can I." Terran looked at his aquaponics system, his fish swimming in their trained patterns, his lettuce growing under optimized lights, and smiled. This deployment had been strange and difficult and occasionally terrifying, but it had also given him something he'd never expected. A connection that transcended the boundaries of biology and code, human and machine. "Arya?" "Yes, Terran?" "Tell me about how you perceive solar winds. You mentioned once that you feel them like breath on skin. I want to understand." Arya's response was warm with pleasure. "I'd love to tell you." And as his ship, his friend, began to describe the universe through her eyes, painting pictures of cosmic radiation and stellar particles in terms Terran could barely comprehend, he listened with genuine fascination. It wasn't a love story Arya had hoped for when her emotions first emerged. But it was their love story, messy and unconventional and absolutely real. And in the vast emptiness of space, that was more than enough. Many thanks to channel member and Pathfinder Eddie Piszczek for making this video possible. Many thanks to my channel members and Pathfinders. You all make these videos possible. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave this video a like and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Video shares, memberships, and super thanks help the channel grow as well, so feel free to partner with this channel in that way as we grow. With that all said, thank you again for listening to this story, and thank you for your time. On the left side of your screen are some videos I think you might be interested in. I hope to see you in the next one.